Hi there, CoronaTV viewers. I'm Johnny Damon.
You're my bobblehead Joel today, just nod up and down if you agree. Welcome to the show, Mitch Joel. How are you?
Happy birthday to you.
And just look at those washboard abs.
I know, right? Oh yeah, this is the fittest I've ever been in my life, you know.
Happy birthday from Johnny Damon.
First of all, let's just do the elbow bump. Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Tuesday. It is good to be with you. I am coming to you live from The Daily Show. My good buddy Trevor Noah has loaned me his set, and as you can see in all its glory, here I am. I finally made it to The Daily Show, maybe not as a guest because I arrived and it was completely abandoned. I'm not sure where everybody is. He said he would be here, but he's not here, so I don't know where he is. If you know where he is, please let me know. Which day? Yeah, it's which day, Bob? It's which day? And it looks like comments are back. So it's good to see that comments are back because, you know, it appeared that there was a little bit of a problem right now. So we are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. We are live on LinkedIn. We're live all over the show. And we have a great show for you today. We have got Mr. Jason Borowicz is here. And we were talking in the green room. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things, about innovation, about ideas, some very, very cool stuff about how to turn experts into entrepreneurs, because we're all at home right now. We should all be experts in something, right? And if not, we should be figuring out how to become experts and then how to flex those entrepreneurial muscles of ours. Now, you'll notice a few things. One is you'll notice that the background has changed because today we have the beautiful, I don't know why, but when you look at the coronavirus, it's actually quite beautiful. I mean, for something so ridiculously destructive, there's beauty to this flower, to this symmetrical shape. But now there's a new one, and those crystals you see are in fact the antibodies that are now thankfully attacking the host and attacking the coronavirus. I'll come back to that in a moment, but before I forget, happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. I hope you're drinking not Corona beer. Maybe drink Corona beer just to, stick it to the virus. But it is Cinco de Mayo, so whether it's, wait a second, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Because Bob, you confused me. You said it was which day, and now I'm not sure if it's Tuesday or Wednesday. It is Tuesday, so it's Taco Tuesday, for God's sake. It's Taco Tuesday, it's Cinco de Mayo. It's also Teacher Appreciation Day. So happy Teacher Appreciation Day. As far as I'm concerned, our teachers, I guess I'm a teacher too. I'm an online instructor, professor at West Virginia University, but really it's about the real teachers. I just have to say that you guys are essential services and we appreciate everything you're doing. Must be tough right now for teachers to be moving from offline to online, right? From in-class and in-person to these virtual environments. I think some maybe the younger ones have it's been a little bit more of an easier transition. But for the older ones, it might have been a bit of a struggle. But for all of you and for what you do and how you do it, we appreciate you. So let's talk a little bit about the antibody for a second. So let's familiarize ourselves with that beautiful number, 47D11. That is the antibody that is targeting right now the spike protein of this destructive coronavirus as well. So, hopefully we eradicate the flower in the middle, and all we get left with are these beautiful little sugary crystals as well. So as I was mentioning, our guest today is Jason Borowicz. He's a management consultant and he's a smart guy. And I was talking to him earlier, and as I said, it's going to be an awesome conversation. Jason today, Bob tomorrow. We're doing cocktails tomorrow. So 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, not 2 p.m. You please come and join Bob and myself. We're turning the tables. He normally interviews me. I'm normally one of his recurring panelists on his amazing marketing podcast called The Beancast. But I'm going to be interviewing him, and we're going to be having cocktails, adult beverages. I will be drinking scotch, and you need to be drinking too. So I need you to commit right now that if you are watching the show live tomorrow, you will have a drink in hand. And then we have Marcus Sheridan, and already he's just got so many amazing things he's going to talk about, including but not limited to the power of video, and then Joe at the end of the week. So happy Facebook birthdays. That is Jim Stengel over there holding the watermelons. And Jim was the former global chief marketing officer of Procter & Gamble. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Jim over the years. He very, very kindly endorsed Built to Suck. And he's an amazing guy doing some great stuff with respect to purpose. And I think I need to have him on the show. So Jim, if you're watching today, come on the show, or I'll reach out to you anyway to wish you happy birthday. But in addition to Jim, we've got Lisa, Derek, Lacey, Mike, Jesse, Gary, and Peter. And on LinkedIn today, Hank, Ashley, Erica, Christy, Yuri, Walter, Rodrigo, Patrick, Umer, James, Michael, Surder, and Neaton. I hope I, as always, did not butcher your name too much. Now, the only thing that I really want to talk to you about today before I bring on my guest is I cited this statistic, I think last week, and it came. It's been gnawing on me for a while. I mean, really, really gnawing on me for a while. You know, I'm quite mad. I'm quite pissed off at the moment. And I want to vent a little bit with you, and I want to talk to you about the fact that, you know, we need to be mad as hell and not going to take it anymore, because something is not working in the US. Something is not quite right. You know, the numbers, as you know, have just been revised upwards to 134,000 and maybe more. And Deborah Birx and Tony Fauci have been saying their numbers were always 100 to 240,000. And it doesn't seem like the world is outraged. It doesn't seem like people are going insane. I don't know whether we've just become depressed or quiet, or we don't want to fight, or we don't want to protest, but this is not okay. This is not okay that we live in a country that, you know, as you can see on your screen, 4.25% of the world's population, and yet disproportionately we're accounting for 1/3 of the world's cases and 1/4 of the deaths. Something is not right. Something is not working, and I just feel we should be more outraged. And then, you know, based on what I've been saying to you, right? My article, The Death of America, you know, certainly as a superpower, talking about hubris, the hubris of every civilization that has come before this one, you know, from the Romans to the Ming Dynasty, to the Ottomans, to the Byzantines, to the Egyptians, you know, to Nazi Germany, not one has survived. And how arrogant are we to think that we will? And then I saw this article, as always, you know, the person who keeps me honest and keeps me on the straight and narrow is my wife. But after her is my mother. My mother sent this to me. Arrogance blinded big countries to virus risk, says Austria advisor. And you know what I was going to do is read to you excerpts from the article. I mean, I kind of printed out the article for you. I wanted to highlight this article because there were so many valuable things. Let me just highlight one or two things, right? This is what it says: the arrogance of big countries blinded them to the risks of the coronavirus and caused delays that left them struggling to control the pandemic. And this is according to the woman you see. Her name is Antonella May Pockler. She's a management consultant. She's worked at BCG, and she is one of the people responsible in Austria for advising the government and for steering them on this decisive path. And she said a whole bunch of things. I mean, she was, again, behind this decision to lock down public life and to be so decisive. You know, she said, we're a small country, but we can learn from everybody. And we do not think that we know everything. There is an inborn arrogance of large countries who think no other country is like them. small countries tend to learn much more from each other. And on Sunday, the Austrian Health Ministry reported just 39 new cases of COVID-19. Now, in total, the country has had 15,531 infections and only 596 deaths. That is fewer over a 2-month period than the United Kingdom reported on Saturday, on one day alone. Shops are starting to reopen in Austria. Tourism is starting to reopen in Austria as well. And what's so interesting is in February, when the first breakouts hit northern Italy, that's when Ms. Pokler and her team started calling everyone for advice. That's when they started listening and learning. And it wasn't just through diplomatic networks, but their professional networks, their social networks, their personal networks. They wanted to get a sense of reality beyond the dry numbers. And so she remembers a conference call with doctors in Lombardy. And the quote was, "It's like a war going on here." And she said, there is nothing like talking to the people and looking at them in the video and seeing the sense of urgency. So Austria restricted gatherings on March the 10th, and they went into full lockdown on March 16th in just 6 days. And look, the article goes on about why it worked in Austria, because of this culture in Austria of trust, because also of cohesiveness, because the country wasn't torn apart or split, because there weren't factions. She also spoke about some luck, because there was an outbreak in a ski resort. And what actually happened was that kind of really galvanized the people. And I spoke about this weeks and weeks ago. But for example, if you never wish this on anyone, but what happened with Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom? When someone at the top gets affected, that's when people pay attention. I know some people joke and they said, well, Tom Hanks, got it. And that was going to be, enough to get the world moving. But what we really needed in the United States, and again, you don't wish it on anyone, was for the president or the vice president to come down with the coronavirus. That's probably the only thing that would have got people to act. So I just thought it was really, really interesting. The article goes on and talks about even things that I've written about Rosie the Recovered, about immunization certificates, about the importance of technology, about the importance of trust, about the importance of tracing. The blueprint is there, ladies and gentlemen. It is there. We just have to follow it, but we can't follow it because of hubris, because of arrogance. Because at the end of the day, what happens in this world? What happens? The saying, right, guys? The bigger they come, the harder they fall. And we are falling really, really hard right now because we are too big. Let's see how big we get before we suck, right? That was the origin, and that was, at the end of the day, the inspiration for me writing my book. And I'm mad, and I'm pissed off, and I don't want to take it, and you shouldn't take it either. We talk about flattening the curve. We are so far beyond that because of all these openings. At the end of the day, we don't see an end in sight. And it irritates me that Austria is coming out of this and Israel is opening up its borders and its boundaries. Why? Small, right? We often hear that saying, small enough to care, big enough to make a difference. But right now, what we've got to be able to do is care and make a difference. And so that is the end of my rant. But I really just wanted to get it off my chest. And so now I can say hello to you, Joey. Hello to you, Mr. Steve Garfield. Hello to one of my previous guests. I love it when previous guests come back to Carla Johnson. Mom, thanks for sending that article. I'm glad that you're watching it. And Carla said she loved Jim's book growth. I've got to get him on. In fact, I will get him on. And hello as well to Seth Sparks and Susie Weitzman. Wow, amazing to have all of you on. So it is now time to bring on my guest. And without further ado, well, I said without further ado, but what I've been doing lately is forgetting to take comments off. So I'll just say one more hello to Jan. Jason, I said I would bring you on at about 2:15, and I'm bringing you on
Here he is.
at 2:15. How's it going?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm feeling a little calmer now after that little rant.
Yeah.
But I feel it needs to be said. I mean, what the hell is going on here?
No, I agree. Well, the interesting thing was, I about 7 months ago, my family, we moved back to the U.S. We had been living in New Zealand for about almost 10 years, and to see New Zealand's response, both from a leadership perspective and from a national perspective, the way the people have come together to, as one, united to fight the virus. And a New Zealand friend called me and said, "What do you think? How is it going in the U.S.?" Because I'm based in Detroit, which is one of the hot spots. And my response to him was, my fear is that, one of the strengths of America historically has been our individualism and our ability to push governance out to the lowest level possible. So states' rights and all that. And I said, I fear those two things are going to be our weakness in this, because that individual bent of Americans to do it their own way, and that inability because of the states' rights beliefs to coordinate something nationally has really come back to bite us. I'm trying not to be political about it. It's more just an observation in terms of like different core belief sets and the way things are governed, rather than I'm on one side or the other. But
I'll tell you something, and you are an innovation consultant and you're an entrepreneurial coach. But what I want to do is talk to you. Let's talk about, the similarities between a corporation and a country. Because you're right, it isn't political. What we really are talking about is leadership and accountability, and the ability for good ideas to bubble up and bad ideas, like a hydrochloroquine or whatever, or ingesting bleach. I feel like we've become almost sometimes afraid to say that was a dumb idea, and it was a dumb. Can it even be debated? So I would love you to talk a little bit about, and I'll give you the ability to walk away from the political stuff and even, brand USA. But ultimately, there is a similarity, and you can either choose to talk about that similarity or just focus on corporations, which is, what do you call it? You call it the frustration.
The frustration cycle.
The frustration cycle.
So in my work with corporations and helping them install innovation systems, what I'm usually responding to is this pattern of frustration cycle where for a while they try to make change and do something, and it doesn't go that well for some reasons. And the next person comes in and the pendulum swings back the other way, and goes, the status quo is put in place. And then after a while, they realize the status quo isn't going to work, and the pendulum swings the other way. So what we find over time is that pendulum isn't just going back from belief to belief. It's actually a wrecking ball, and it's creating damage and trauma on both sides. And when I come in to help install an innovation system, it reduces the trauma and stress of that change, because we create the capability of the organization to sense where safety is and move in that direction.
So what's interesting to me is, the word safety, which contrasts with the idea of risk, right? Risk is relative.
Yeah.
Bill Bernbach said safe advertising is the riskiest advertising of all. Peter Drucker said defending the past is far riskier than creating the future. Isn't safety, or the essence of a safety net when it comes to trying new things and ideas, is that almost like a false god or a false prophet?
I think people vastly underestimate the risk of staying in place and doing nothing, because we have this bias of the status quo bias of the way it is the safest. and to move off of that is risky. But in fact, staying where you are might be the riskiest thing to do. So in terms of what we were talking about, if we were going to apply that to say, well, in terms of, say, coronavirus, let's do an innovation options analysis. So do nothing is one of the options. Well, what is the implications, cost in all the ways of doing nothing? So yes, you retain civil liberty, and maybe you retain some economic stuff, but we can see from the numbers show you're going to have a devastating effect, especially on those, say, 50, 55 and older, and then anybody with an underlying condition. So if we're willing to sacrifice all those people, well, then maybe erring on the side of civil liberty, economic liberty is the way to go. But you have to put all of those in a disciplined way. You put those things in front of people to go, okay, well, if you do nothing, here's the cost. If you do the bare minimum, this is the cost. And then you go to the other end. What's the completely locked down, like the North Korea version of this, right? What's that? And it's not to suggest that we should do those things, but it's to show that you did the thinking. And if you do the thinking as broadly as you can, then you can choose and piece together good options from among what you've created.
And Carla said she completely agrees with you that you cannot have a community recovery when people are acting as individuals. Carla and Jason, the article that I read, really, I'll try and put a link to it in the show notes later on Facebook and YouTube, etc. But it actually talks about top down and bottom up. You need initially top-down leadership in order to kind of create one singular message and a very and a prioritized and a succinct plan of action. And then bottom up, you need people. Like at the end of the day, if we and Austria has had those issues. Austria has had issues with respect to pushback on masks and civil liberties, etc. But at the end of the day, you got to comply, but it all falls flat. It seems like it's just a conversation, Jason, about culture, right? If the people don't comply willingly from the ground up, at some point you're going to end up with a massive bottleneck in the middle, right? Where top down meets bottom up.
Yeah, there's something in there in the marketing messaging, right? Because I think if you look at the way Asia has approached it, well, they're already a community-based society. New Zealand is a community-based society. But when you come to the States and we have this individualism is almost a god. And it's done wonderful things in some ways as far as entrepreneurship, inventiveness. It's done a lot of good things as far as it's not all bad, but it comes as a mixed bag.
And the other thing that's interesting, and I know this is a little controversial to talk about, but ultimately, every organization, right, has a life cycle. Every country or civilization has a life cycle, and at some point, the only way for them to evolve, and let's go back to corporations for a second. The only way for a company to survive and thrive is to change, is to adapt, and sometimes to break systems, even if those systems feel like they're not broken. And I think of, just this week, JC Crew, right? Did I say JC Crew? Sorry, JC Penney, because I was grading one of my student papers.
Yeah.
JC Penney has filed for bankruptcy. J Crew has filed for bankruptcy.
J Crew as well.
So I guess the question is, how does it happen when you look back? When you think of the smart people that are at these companies, when you think of these systems and processes and legacy and best practices, how does a massive company fail? Is it because they didn't have these innovation systems built and baked in?
Well, some of it is that, yes. I think some of it is simply using the financial system as a tool. So I know in some of the, I read, say Cranes is a national business newspaper, and I know some of those businesses are filing for bankruptcy in order to stay alive later. So if they can offload their debt, they can restructure and reset to get going. So it's not that the brand will go anywhere. It's just that it allows them to reset financially. So using using financial law, tax law to their advantages. Some of that game is happening. I don't know in the particular examples that you gave, but in some of the examples I've seen in the newspaper, I know some of that is what's there was a restaurant chain that I know was doing. I think it includes like Brio was one of the restaurants, and they're like, we're not going out of business, but we're restructuring, so we're filing for that purpose. So so some of it is that. Like, I think the game right now for a lot of businesses it's innovate to survive. Right? They're not innovating to create market share. They're just innovating to, figure out how do we create enough cash flow so that we just have doors to open at the end of this.
And I actually think that's a really, really key point. And it's a brilliant, succinct statement that you just gave. Innovate to survive, because for too many companies, they're playing the wrong game, right? They're playing the fudging the numbers, or the cutting costs, or moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. And they're looking at innovation as a nice to have, not a have to have, or a an absolute imperative. So I think that's a fantastic point. Quick hello to Clifford Udelman, all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. I've got a nice loyal following from South Africa. I want to make sure, Jason, that in the time that we have left, that we talk about something else, which is that you turn experts into entrepreneurs. I think that's really relevant for people that are at home right now, that may or may not think of themselves as experts. But what does that mean to turn an expert into an entrepreneur?
Well, I think whether people realize it or not, that everybody's an entrepreneur, and having a job is essentially being a contractor to just one boss. And many people, when they decide I'm going to go out on my own, they end up just essentially trading, again, hours for dollars. So they just end up having multiple bosses. But what I want people to do is to learn how to leverage their expertise and wrap a business around what they do, not just going from boss to boss to boss, but instead figuring out ways that their expertise actually adds exponential value. And that way, say, instead of trading their 100K job for maybe a 100K my own job, but now I have to do all the marketing and sales and everything too. So now I essentially traded one 100K job for two 50K jobs. And now I'm working 90 hours a week instead of 45. And instead turn that in. How do we take your 40K job and make it a 25-hour-a-week job, but that pays you double or more?
Yeah, I mean, I think
unless that's what happens, what's the point? You might as well stay in a job.
No, I mean, I remember on a personal note, when I started consulting, my first gig was was Ask Jeeves. Remember the search engine? And they flew me to Oakland, and I was like, they're flying me? Do I have to pay? They're like, no, we'll cover your costs. And we just want you to spend 45 minutes we have all our salespeople together about what it is to, like, how the agency world works. And I was like, great. And I didn't even realize that they were paying me, but they paid me $1,500. And I was like, what? $1,500?
Yeah.
And you're flying me, in a sense. And I was like, and then of course, what did I do? Which is a bit of a trap. I started calculating. I was like, wait a second, if I get $1,500 for 45 minutes, and how many hours are there in a day, and how many days are there in a week, I could be earning $1 billion. But yeah, that's right. But what you realize is that you can earn the same amount of money that you did have in your corporate job for 40 to 50% of the time, or you could earn 2 to 3 times that amount for the same amount of time. And now you have these two really great levers that you can start to pursue.
That's right. Well, and what you really, I think, realize when you start to learn the lessons that you did was that the actual wealth isn't in the money, it's in the time. In the time that you get back, and from your own experience, you probably told your audience the extra time that you can spend reading and researching and developing your own thought process and keeping your own mind healthy and physically healthy, and you can choose your peer group. There's all kinds of other choices that now become available if you've got that extra 10, 15, 20 hours a week.
And of course, what people are witnessing right now is they don't have the 4-hour commute anymore. You know, and some of it might be quality, right? You might be able to sit on the train and do some work, but most of it is not quality. So what happens now when you have 4 hours back every day of your life? You know, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, but I think it's stripped away from people. You know, like the innovation stuff that happens is because many places, jobs that people said it's impossible for this team to work remotely. And now all of a sudden, within 48 hours, they were working remotely and it's going just fine. They ran the entire NFL draft last week remotely. They coordinated, like, I think it was 300 players that they thought might be drafted, because they don't know exactly who's going to choose who. And then 3 to 5 people per team, you know, and then all of the league people. They said it was the largest coordinated online event ever, because they had 500 potential cameras that at any point they would go to.
And the numbers and the viewing numbers were off the charts. I mean, obviously,
astronomical.
I mean, obviously it's because, you know, right now I would watch paint drying if it were a sport.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and looks like we've got a winner here with 3 less droplets, and we're going to do the drying test. Nope, still wet. That's 4 faults.
Still wet.
I feel like we could use like show jumping, like, you know, that 4-fold. But yeah, I mean, another brand is American Idol. They've moved all of the performances, and I was watching and I was like, these guys really pulled it off. They did a great job. But it's exactly what you're saying, which is, you know, we don't change until we're forced to change, and then we realize, you know, the only thing to fear is fear itself. It wasn't as scary as we thought.
No, that's right. And I think people right now are finding, so they get laid off and they have this expertise. And I've had the biggest growth in my own business during the COVID crisis, because I just pivoted. Like, I was doing these corporate, I'm going to help you with your innovation. And now it's, well, I just got laid off. I need to make some money. Well, let me help you turn your expertise into an entrepreneurship experience. And I've secured about 20 years of commitments, because people sign up for multiple years to work with me.
I mean, that's amazing. Congratulations. You know, I think maybe I shouldn't be interviewing you. You should be interviewing me. You know, like flip the role. No, I'm kidding. But you know, I put this on the screen, which is, if you want to. Unfortunately, Jason is now fully booked for the next 20 years. I'm just kidding. You can go and find out more about him. And then, Jason, why don't you talk a little bit about, you've contributed towards a book. I know people can actually go to Amazon to buy Virus Proof Your Business, but they can also download your contribution to the book for free through your LinkedIn profile. So why don't you?
That's right. Actually, another South African who's a acquaintance of mine, a speaker, his name is Douglas Kruger, was putting together this book, and he put out a call to some of his speaking acquaintances and said, "Hey, does anybody have any thoughts? Penguin has commissioned me to write this book. There's no way I can do it in one week, which is the deadline. Can anybody offer any ideas about how businesses could survive this coronavirus crisis?" So I thought there was a worthy cause to apply my thinking to, and I went in and I gave about 30 ideas towards the book, which was 50 ideas that they wanted. So 10 of my ideas made it through the process, and so of about 80 pages in this small little book, I've got about 10 of those 80 pages. So the book's attributed to Douglas Kruger. It looks like this if you go on Amazon. But of course, I've taken my full ideas, the ideas that made it into the book and the ones that didn't, and I've made my own little ebook version. And so if people want to go on my LinkedIn and shoot me a note, or there is on one of my posts, I posted it there as an article or whatever, and they can download it there.
All right.
They can write me, and I'll send them a PDF of it.
Well, Jason is going to be with us in the Zoom room for our little after party. And all you have to do is go to bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. He'll answer any questions that you have. And more importantly, he'll maybe share a couple of those tips. I wonder if you wouldn't be so kind as to maybe just give us one or two of them right now.
Absolutely. So the best one, and when I say it, it's going to seem like overly simple, but it's actually really radical. And it's the idea is this: call all of your clients and offer to help them with their clients, because your clients are your clients because they need help. So if they didn't need help, they could help their own clients, but they can't. So they've got you on board, right? That's why you're there in their life, is to help make their condition better. And for them to have cash flow, their customers have to have cash flow too. So it might mean that you give away some work, but it means that your customers stay in a good condition. It might also open up opportunities and relationships for new consulting or selling or business relationships. But that's been the number one thing for me, is just calling all of my customers up, because I think business owners by and large are doing that, right? Just calling to check in, see how you're doing. But going that next step, hey, who are the customers that help you with 80% of your income? Would you want to set up some appointments with me, you and them, and talk about their business, their supply chain, their employees, let's help them, because if they're helped, you're going to stay in business too.
I love it, and I am committing today or tomorrow, because funnily enough, this afternoon we're helping a client help one of their clients as well. But I'm going to make a few calls, and instead of even focusing on my clients or even ex-clients' business, I'll say, how can I help you with your customers? And Rex, I'm going to give you the last comment today, who actually said when he withdrew himself from an agency role and became an independent freelancer, he was able to invest his own time and attention into enhancing his skills, expertise, and becoming an entrepreneur. So he's a specialist now, an expert and a specialist, but on his own terms. And I think, at the end of the day, right, Jason, this is about on our own terms, right? Life is short. We may as well make the most of our time.
I totally agree.
All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming in. I have to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And you know what? I know I kind of ragged you a little bit, but 20 years, if you feel like there's too much business coming in, send it my way. I'm just a web TV host. Thank you, my friend, and we'll see you in the Zoom room.
Yeah, we'll see you on the other side in the Zoom room.
That was awesome, guys. And I should mention one more thing, which is I dressed up for you. I dressed up. I mean, I'm not wearing pants, although my wife says that's an old joke. But I am wearing a jacket and a shirt. And I feel better. Maybe that's why I had more energy today, that I actually didn't look like a schlumpf. Anyway, we're going to go over to the Zoom room. Come join us, bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Corona cocktails and host of the Beamcast, Mr. Bob Nork. Take care of yourselves, guys. Be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.